Welcome back to The Science of Turning Back Time, where we explore the science and strategies that help us extend our health span, not just our lifespan. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible guests, David Cravett and Larry Wolf, who are the co-authors of the Super Aging Workbook, and they are also the founders of superagingnews.com. So David has a long track record as a thought leader on aging, and he has three previous books, including The New, Old, and Beyond Age Rage. And he's also a very familiar voice on radio and TV discussing the revolution in how we age. Larry brings deep expertise in identifying consumer trends and helping organizations see what's coming next. And as a CEO of the Wolf Group, he's advised Fortune 500 companies and governments. And now he's bringing that same insight to help people approach aging in a radically different way. Together, they've identified the 7 critical pillars, which they call the 7 A's of super aging, that help us switch from the default view of aging to something far more empowering and exciting. So I can't wait to unpack these with them today. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I've just been on your website, Super Aging, and there's one title or tab on there, Work and Unretirement. I really
Yes.
like that idea. Tell me about.
Right. Right. Well, we came to that because for two reasons. First of all, the super agers statistically are not retiring at 65. The idea that you must retire at 65 was a hallmark of what we call default aging, which is I'm 65 and retired, and I really don't have enough time left to do anything new. I'm hoping I can live longer, but the best is going to be I'm playing defense. I can only hope for another 10 years, God willing, pain free, but certainly not enough time to start anything new and to be really productive and creative. And the super agers reject that point of view and say at 65, because it's true, I might have 20, 30 years. I can, with a straight face, aspire to 100. It's not radical to say, I think I can live to 100. Statistically, maybe yes, maybe no, but the aspiration is not silly anymore. And so what am I going to do with those extra 30 years? I'm not going to just sit around and do nothing. So maybe I am employed. Maybe I stay with my current job longer. Maybe I create a new job. Maybe I do a side hustle. Maybe I buy a franchise. Maybe I volunteer. The point is I stay active, and that leads to productive, and that leads to creative, and that leads to a dynamic decades ahead of me. And so that's why we put it up there, because it's actually happening in front of our eyes.
I really like that. And it's actually interesting from a clinical point of view. What I often see in my clinic is that when people retire, that's often where a lot of health issues begin. And so for a very long time, there's been this idea of people losing purpose, and
Yes.
that impacting them not just mentally, but ultimately physically as well. Is this something that you've seen in your experience as well?
Having goals, having purpose is an absolutely critical variable. And, you can retire and you can focus on learning something new. You can focus on volunteering. You can have side gigs, but whatever it is, you absolutely you need to continue doing something, whatever it is. You need goals, you need a sense of achievement, a sense of accomplishment. And if people lose that in a way, they almost subconsciously lose their will to live. They no longer have the energy. They no longer do all the things necessary to maintain their quality of life, and life becomes less fun and less fulfilling. So absolutely critical, which is why we created the term unretirement.
And just to riff on that for a bit, world around us for superagers is slowly coming around to supporting that in lots of ways that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. For example, there's a whole looming profession, burgeoning profession, if you will, of retirement coaches. People who will sit down with you and say, oh, you're 55, you're anticipating you're 65. And well, okay, what are you going to do now? So we're not just saying do it and good luck. There's actual coaches. It's not for everybody, but that the idea of such a profession would have been unthinkable. There's also the idea of, and this you'll be familiar with this because it ties in with brain health, of doing something new. The brain craves novelty. Novelty wards off dementia. So we've had posts on our website, and there are therapies and experts that will say, okay, learn a new language, take up a musical instrument. It doesn't need to be go into the office for another 20 years. So unretirement can be activity. But as Larry said, with purpose, we had a post. I just want to comment on it quickly about a test that was done. And I know you like clinical research, and everything on our website is backed up by experts. It doesn't originate with us, but they did a test where they took a control group and a test group and gave them some brain cognitive function tests at the beginning to set a benchmark. And then the test group, they taught them Spanish. None of them spoke a word of Spanish. And so they put them through, 13-week, not long, several months though. They made a serious, and the control group, they left alone, and they were all in reasonable health. Nobody already had dementia or Alzheimer's, anything like that. Anyway, they come back X months later, and the test group had improved their cognitive function measurably. And none of them were any good at Spanish. It wasn't that they had mastered the language, in a short period of time, but the exercise, the brain was tasked with something new that it hadn't had before, and it drove a higher cognitive performance. And our audience is very interested in stuff like this. What can I do? What are the little things I can do to improve my overall health and to help me? Because our overall mission statement is getting older without getting old.
Yeah, I
We're
love
all
that.
going to be older. You and I are going to be older. We're going to be a half an hour older, 30 minutes from now. So the older part happens anyway, but without getting old. So our audience is very interested in these kinds of techniques because they work and they're important, and we write about them.
Getting older without getting old. I love
Yeah.
that. I mean,
It's a great
That's
line.
that's our mission. That's our mission.
There's
and
a
that
wonderful story on our website that I forgot to mention about a 100-year-old doctor, and he says, I quote, "Retirement is the enemy of longevity." My favorite story.
Can you say that again? Retirement is the end of longevity.
No, the
Enemy.
enemy of change.
Retirement is the enemy of longevity. I agree 100% with that. And often I find people are so looking forward to retirement. They're kind of, planning this phase of their life. And when they get there, there is this losing of purpose, which is a shame. So I think I like this idea of a retirement coach that can kind of help you transition to perhaps you can end up doing something you love even more than you did in your career,
Right.
but something with meaning.
And to be clear, we're not saying you have to keep going into the office. So in the sense that there's pensions, there's benefits, I don't like going to work. I mean, we're not saying keep on going to the office and drawing a paycheck, although more and more people are. In the United States, people now believe about age 74 is when I should really stop going to the office. But it's more stay active, do something. You could retire from the full-time employment paycheck life you had before, but you have to substitute something new and challenging and exciting and with a purpose. Larry said the key word, purpose. If you have a purpose, if there's something you're getting up in the morning doing, even if it's learning a new language or it could be volunteering, but this can be a creative, dynamic time. And another phrase, we didn't think of the phrase, but we've used it often, thrive, not just survive.
Absolutely. Who's your absolute super aging hero? Is there anyone who's inspired you along this route?
Well,
Many people.
many people. I'm a huge Warren Buffett fan. Yeah, and there's interesting examples of people in their 80s, 90s. I think we did a story about Hurricane Hawkins, who I think was over 100, and still running. I'm sure she was walking fast or something, but she was
Competing in track, but she was competing in track meets for centenarians. There's actual track meets for centenarians.
and so many great examples, like skydivers in their late 80s, and I think there was a guy who got his doctorate, I think at age 89, lady who graduated college with her great-granddaughter. So, I mean, so many great stories of people in their 80s, 90s, achieving really great things. And having turned 80, I find this particularly exciting.
Yeah, I'll give you a great UK example that to me embodies the whole thing. Let's try the daily to-do list of Queen Elizabeth, rest her soul, and Prince Philip in their 90s. Let's just hand you that day timer, that calendar, that organizer, and you try to duplicate that.
Absolutely.
And that to me embodies the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
embodies the whole thing. And they didn't just live longer, but they were at it to the end practically. And cogent and capable and intelligent and well into their 90s. So that to me embodies the whole story right there.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit. You've broken this down into really practical ways for people to follow. So you talk about
Yes.
7 A's.
Right. Let me start with the first 2, and then I'll hand off to Larry, because the next 5 are really the creatures of the first 2. Think of an umbrella, with the first 2 being the covering, and then the next 5 being the what goes on. And the first one is attitude. Larry's talked about it already. Positive attitude. Study after study after study. People with a positive attitude outlive people with a negative attitude. And what interested us and our audience is that, and you'll be more familiar with this than we are, even being, a specialist in functional medicine, but they've researched this and they've traced it down to the cellular level, that a positive attitude reduces stress. Stress reduces inflammation. Inflammation is the cause of most age-related ailments. So at the cellular level, a positive, and in fact, what our audience is interested in, we've written about it on our website. Okay, great. Can I train myself to have a positive attitude if I'm not naturally a cheerful person? And the answer is yes. And we've got articles about that. There's specialists and there's techniques. And, I'm a glass half empty guy and or woman, and here's what to do. So attitude overhangs everything. The second A is awareness, which means, am I keeping up with all the latest information? And now there's a flood, because longevity is such a red hot topic. All this new information, new discoveries every week, something new coming out of the lab, some new wonder drug, some new workout regime, something new they discovered about food to eat and not to eat. Wow. Because we have an audience of people, remember, who believe that I can get older without getting old if only I had the right information. So we see our job as the curators of that information, serving it up to you in an organized way, all of the key nuggets, so that you're up to date at all times. And we've got various techniques, especially in our new workbook, for how to organize that flow, where to find it, how to organize it, how to check in on it, so that you're up to date all the time. So if you have a positive attitude, I can do this, I'm determined to do this, it's within my power, and I'm aware of the need to keep up to date. Now off I go and do the next 5 in my daily life, and I'll hand that off to Larry.
Thank you, David. Well, from that comes activity. David talked a little about diet, eating the right foods. And I urge everyone to go on our website, Super Aging News, because one of the things we cover in great depth is food. And when we look at what people read about, food really is one of the top 2 topics. Basically, portion control, basically a pescatarian, a fish and vegetable-based diet, and cut way down in the sugar, which is an inflammatory. But just, there's so many good things written in this, just basically a sensible diet. Secondly, keep moving, exercise. My Pilates trainer has a favorite saying, motion is lotion. So, the more you move, the better you're going to feel. You don't need a rigorous exercise program, but even if you get up and move around and get off your sofa, put your computer or iPad away and just get up and move and do things, you're gonna feel a lot better. I think someone did a study that we, wrote about, that if you can reduce your sitting time just 30 minutes a day, you're gonna live a lot longer, you're gonna feel a lot better, so remember, keep moving, beyond that, flexibility, strength building, aerobics, getting that heart pumping, working your balance, breathing, just so many simple things that you can do, which will help you not only live longer, but have a much longer health span and a much more fulfilling life. So, one of the things years ago, I was in a very hilly little town in Sicily making commercials for an Italian food client. And what I noticed was all the old people, because the little town was so hilly, you had to walk up and down all day to get anywhere. So really keep moving. Beyond attitude, which we talked about earlier, is accomplishment. You need goals, you need purpose, you need to be focused on doing something. As David pointed out, learning something new is absolutely critical. I mean, in my days, I've taken up Tai Chi swordsmanship, of all silly things, and it's
No, it's wonderful. It's
wonderful,
wonderful.
really
It's wonderful. You should see
important
him.
to
You
extend
should
my.
see him. You should see him.
But anyway, so purpose, accomplishment. Next, very important is your attachment, your relationships. You need people in your life, family, friends, social network. It's really isolation. Loneliness is a killer. It cripples people. It shortens their health span. It makes life empty. Relationships are critical. Probably so healthy and have such a great life because I've been married to the same great lady for almost 60 years. So I'm very, very lucky in that regard. So attachment, very critical. Next, autonomy. You need to be in charge of your own life. You need to do things. Physical autonomy, very, very important. And one of the exciting things, again, that we talk about a lot in our newsletter is age tech. So many new things are happening, to make your home more user friendly as you age. There's great new products that help you work in your balance. We're talking to someone who's about to launch a product that improves your vestibular system. Another company has a product that improves your proprioception. So there's just so many things to help you live better and longer on your own. And the other part of autonomy, which is very critical, if you're going to live longer, you need the financial resources to continue living well and to maintain your lifestyle. So you have to think about financial autonomy and, plan for, having the resources you need on into your 90s. The next is avoidance. One of the things that I see rampant in the United States and Canada is ageism. Drives me crazy. People, not everyone, but some people look at age, as something to put you in the back of the line. So you really need to fight ageism. And lastly, in terms of avoidance, there's so many scammers there, and they seem to focus in an older population. So you have to be careful of what you do on the internet. you had to vet all your information sources and make sure you don't do anything financial with anyone you don't know well. And that sort of very briefly covers it. What I urge people to do in summary, we've come out with our new super aging workbook. And if you sit down with the workbook, pick up a pen, spend just minutes a day in a few simple quizzes, exercises, answer a few simple questions, you can put all of the 7 A's in action in your own life if you'll just spend a few minutes a day working on it.
Yeah. If I could just riff on two things Larry said, I don't want to repeat the list, but there are new things under each of these A's happening all the time. And that's one of the things our audience wants to know. So Larry talked about exercise and activity. We write articles about exercise snacks. 10 minutes a day will do amazing things, but what do you do in those 10 minutes? That's a whole new field of what are these one little thing I can do, two little thing, get up, sit down. What do I do? In the area of food, our audience is very interested, and I think you'll be delighted that there's such an audience for this. What does that great food do for me? Why is it so good for me to eat the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow? And why is it so good for me to eat this? And they, again, research shows what's happening at the cellular level that, when I ingest those particular foods, whether it's flavonoids, whether it's anti-inflammatory agents. So our audience wants to know that. Tell me what to do. In the area of autonomy, we're always writing about new discoveries, and it isn't just moving, but it ties back into isolation. Our audience wants to know, well, what can the internet do for me? They want to know, well, what about robots? What about virtual services where an avatar or an AI voice will phone me every day to check in and have a conversation with me? Or with my mom, if I'm looking after an elderly woman. Remember, with super aging, it's the first time in history we have a parent and child both receiving what used to be called old age pensions. A 65-year-old today who would be getting Social Security in the United States, and some equivalent, I think, probably in the UK, could have a 90-year-old parent and child, both receiving what used to be old age. Well, we see all kinds of 65 and 70-year-olds worried about mom, who's still around, or dad at 90. Well, what about a robot? What about an AI avatar? And that's new stuff that's coming on that we write about. In the financial area, the whole financial planning industry, including big time in the UK, where they run inspections of some of these financial planners, are trying to rebrand themselves as senior specialists, as uniquely trained to help seniors keep that money coming in for the next 30 years if you're going to live that long. JP Morgan Asset Management last year told all of its advisors to assume that every client who's a non-smoker who's 65 is going to live to 100. Now, of course, they won't, but just make that your assumption. Now what do you do? And that whole industry, and there's a classification in the UK. We wrote about it in our book. I forget what is senior planning, senior something. It's a stamp that they can put. But to get that stamp, they visit your office. They watch it. There's a body that licenses senior financial planners, precisely because of the reason Larry said. If I'm going to live for 30 more years, the old model doesn't work anymore. How am I going to do this? So because there's so much new stuff happening, that's where we're getting our content, for our website, because it is actually happening to enable people to do this. It isn't just a pie in the sky pipe dream. There's services, there's resources, there's products, there's research, and that's what we try to keep our finger on the pulse of all that.
David, Larry, you guys may not realize it, but you are functional medicine practitioners.
Okay,
Thank you.
We look at longevity.
Yeah,
When we look at longevity, we always say you cannot separate out body, mind, soul. And on many levels, unless you address all of these things, mindset,
Yes.
Purpose, community, which is what Larry touched on. Often I have people coming in going, I've got these NAD injections. I want to do NAD. I'm, looking for a quick fix to longevity, and they're looking for a supplement, or they're looking for, one thing that's going to make them live longer. But it's a combination. It's a combination of the physical stuff, eating right, movement, community, attitude. Social isolation is a huge one. It is a
Yeah.
massive one. So I love that you guys are creating a community, you know,
We're
and,
trying. Yeah. We're building
and
it.
I
Yeah.
think that is so important. Also, creating a community of people who are invested in their health and their future.
And I would point out in that context, real quick, is that we have a very aggressive social media program. And we are reaching, we have 1 million impressions a month. And it's not just Facebook. We're getting people on TikTok. We're getting people on Instagram. The super agers, if you will, as a subset of all people of that age, because not everybody's in that mindset. They are outreach people. They are reaching out for, they're going on social. They're huge users of social media. There's a 94-year-old grandmother that we've written about who has 14 million followers on TikTok, if you please. So they want those answers, and they are doing what you just said. They are reaching out. They are trying to integrate the mental, the physical, the social, but because there's so many resources for them, that's what keeps our content going. Did you hear about this one? Are you aware of that one? Try this little thing. And none of them are big, huge, expensive, global, you know, you got to totally transform every aspect of your life all in 3 days. It's all just, nibble away at it. Try this, try that, keep up to date. And that's super aging.
Larry, this one's for you. What's the first thing you do every morning when you wake up?
Good question.
No, that's a very good question. Probably kiss my wife good morning and
Yeah.
and then get up because I have some vision issues. The doctor wants me to do an eye scrub and a compress every morning. So I do my hot compress, but while I'm doing that, I do a morning warm up in bed, where I do bridges, pelvic tilts, various stretches and whatnot. So I combine the two activities. Then after that, I'll usually go out on my deck and do a standing warm up where I'll do some flexibility, balance, movement exercises. And then I have a great breakfast. And to amplify what David said, my objective at breakfast is I have 8 different fruits, nuts, whatnot in the morning with yogurt. An avid yogurt eater. It's interesting research in the value of fermented food. But before I knew this, for years, I used to own part of a yogurt company. So I've been a huge yogurt eater for years. I, in fact, once wrote a headline, "How can anything that tastes so good be so good for you?" So I have a great breakfast. I think breakfast is an absolutely critical meal, and then I go to work. So that's really my morning routine.
Oh, I love that. I love that you start off with a kiss though.
Yes. Of
Yes,
course.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think there is pretty good research on relationships and longevity as well.
yes,
Starting off with that kiss, I think it will set you up for the day.
it
For
will.
sure. For sure. We've had some interesting articles about rekindling relationships that our audience is interested in, because a lot of people, particularly in this age group, have friends that they've lost touch with, but they wouldn't mind getting back in touch with. And believe it or not, that's a barrier. How do I reach out to somebody after 30 years? And we actually had an article about that that did very well from an expert that said, here's what you do to break the ice again. So again, little techniques, little things you can do to make a big difference.
David, if you could go back and speak to your 40-year-old self, what would the advice be?
I think that I didn't consciously aspire to what I'm doing now. And I think I was a default ager because I was relying on the fact I'm very lucky that in my family, people tend to live a long time. And I was in the old mode. When I get sick, I go to the doctor. The doctor, who is God, treats the sickness, treats the illness, and then I'm better. And then I never go to the doctor again till the next time I'm sick. And that was the model that I inherited from my parents and grandparents. The doctor is there. So all of health is basically a treatment transaction. It's not a wellness transaction. And I don't know that I would have been in any better shape now or how much of it is genetic. And I didn't, I had a relatively healthy lifestyle, but I wasn't conscious of any of this. I just went through the motions. So I would have said to myself, do you realize what's coming? Do you realize what you could be achieving? And I would have gotten a lot healthier a lot sooner, although I'm in pretty good health now. But I think I would have been a lot more excited about the aging process. I didn't know any better. I was just the doctor is God. And by the way, today, for many superagers, the doctor, particularly the family physician, not the surgeon. By the time you need surgery, you're not messing around telling the guy what to do. But the first line physician has morphed in my lifetime from God to supplier. And one of the endorsers of our first book, Super Asia, whose name you might be familiar with because he was the head of information technology for the NHS in the UK, Sir Muir Gray, he wrote a book about how the pendulum is swinging to place more control in the hands of the patient, particularly in that primary care world of managing your overall health. And the clinician who hoarded all the information came from the clinician. Now that information is more available to the quote unquote patient. And he's a big believer in patient power. And he read our first book and was kind enough to write an endorsement on our cover of our first book. And he's a big name, in the UK and also a fellow Scotsman, I think, from that part of the world. So, yeah, I would have told myself, do you have any clue what's coming? Oh, my God.
What's interesting is that when I started the podcast, I anticipated that most of my listeners would be 60s, 70s, 80s. In fact, we've got quite a big subscribers of people in their 40s and 50s, which has
Yes.
surprised me.
No, that's
There are
good.
people now who are younger and younger and thinking about, one of the points you made was even financially planning for this,
Yes.
later on. So I have people coming in now in their 40s and saying, I'm starting to think I might want to work until I'm 70 or 80, and I need to be well for that. I need to be in really good shape so that I can continue to earn, and that I can, plan around kind of living longer. So it's wonderful to also see younger generations now starting to.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember, you are a pioneer as we are. We are, the way I like to think of it, the super agers, we're going out ahead with the machetes and carving the first trail through the forest of longevity. But going forward, that will become the norm. 90 won't be the new 70. That'll be what 90 is. And Larry and I both have grandchildren. Those kids are going to grow up in a world where 120 is going to be very achievable. Every aspect of society will be different. We are going out ahead and sort of paving the way to people think about, well, what does that really mean if you can live that long? Whether it's unretirement or whether it's activity or whether it's social robots, whatever it is. But that will become the norm. So I'm very excited by this because we're kind of the preview of what's coming.
Absolutely. For someone who's listening to this and thinking, like, where do I start? They may be in their 70s or in their 80s and thinking, everything you're saying does make sense, but where do I start? What would you say to that person?
Get the super aging workbook and
Yeah.
do the simple exercises. I mean,
Yeah.
what we're recommending is it doesn't take a doctorate in brain surgery. It's very simple, everyday stuff, and just sit down with a pencil for a
Yes.
few minutes a day and do some very simple things and you'll have a great life going forward.
Little
Where you start
things, yeah,
big,
absolutely.
little things.
Little things have a big impact. And if you can start to accumulate the little wins.
In a small way, yeah.
So, yeah, little. Larry talked about food. Food is one of our most popular topics, but we don't offer a full 7-day meal plan diet. They're out there. They're excellent. There's wonderful books about it. Try this one. Try that one. One of our biggest articles was about easy food hacks that you can make in your kitchen to transform it into a longevity center. Just little stuff. Put this stuff in your fridge. Try this one meal. When you have a snack, here's what to do, but very practical. So we're in the business of saying, because we're not clinicians, we're curators of what other people are finding. And the prevailing wisdom is little things, big impact, little habits, big results. Just get started. Just
Yeah,
get
and
started.
one important thought that you triggered was enjoy yourself. I mean, with food, eat stuff that tastes good, do things that are fun. Life is great, so have fun, do what you like within reason. But be prudent.
Larry, that's a really interesting point, because one thing I've heard people say is that, I don't really want to do things. First of all, I don't really want to live longer if it just means I'm going to be sitting in a chair,
Yes,
Right.
and
exactly.
do anything. And the second thing they say is, well, I want to enjoy my life, so I don't want to do all these things that's going to extend my life. So it's fine. Where do you find the balance between saying, okay, there are certain things you should be doing. You should be eating well and exercising and, you know, putting some effort and energy into that, but you also need to be having fun and enjoying it. So how do you find the balance?
Well, I think you find the balance in a few ways. One, a lot of things that I enjoy are good for me. Secondly, you can't be rigid. Like, although I don't recommend it, a couple of times a month, I'll have a good steak. Not very good for me, but I love steak. But most of the time, fortunately, I love fish as well. I love vegetables. So you have to occasionally indulge. When I go to a birthday party, I have a piece of birthday cake. The sugar is not very good for you, and I'll have a Baki chocolate with lunch a few times a week. So you have to indulge yourself and not be rigid. I think the thing is to be relaxed and kind of combine the enjoyment with the prudent good sense. Like mental activities are a lot of fun, for instance. I love doing crosswords and acrostics and Wordle and spelling bee, but all of this stuff, and there's very good research on it, extends your cognitive skills. So combine the two, I think.
I think that we also have to recognize that super age, there are people that don't want to be or won't be or can't be or I wouldn't want to live any longer in this terrible world. If there's, political or social, we can't do anything about that. We are talking to a population that wants to do this. But here's the key. The first book I wrote 15 years ago called The New Old was about the baby boomers' attitude to aging. And it was a social commentary book. It was based on my experience as a marketer and I'm a baby boomer myself. I'm the older part of the baby boomers, the first ever me generation, a generation that was very self-important, if I could say so. We were the biggest generation, so the advertisers always were after us. If we were kids, if we were teenagers, young, wherever we were on the timeline, everybody wanted us. All of a sudden, we approach our 60s, and we're saying, I'm not going to be my grandfather. I don't want to be an old person. So that was a purely social, attitudinal thing. It was not contingent upon living longer. The boomers were saying, even if I don't live a day longer than my grandma, I'm not going to be my grandma. I'm not going to be old. I hate being old. I don't want to be thought of being old. You can't push me off the stage. I still want that spotlight on me. And then what happens over time? Hey, wait a minute. Along comes the longevity revolution. The two curves intersect. And now the boomers, who want to never be, who don't want to be thought of as old culturally, socially, and psychologically. Hey, wait a minute, I actually can live a lot longer now. So that's the group. And the baby boomers represent the majority of people over the age of 75, for example, are baby boomers. And 50 million more in the United States coming on stream that haven't yet reached 75. So they're going to dominate. So super agers and boomers are going to be almost synonymous over time. And that is a generation, speaking broadly, that is very interested in not getting off the stage and in living longer and in living better. What Larry's saying is very true. Little things, start small. You don't have to upset your whole schedule and join an expensive gym and do a 3-hour workout 3 times that we do impossible things that you're never going to habits you can't keep anyway. Why do it? Do things you can achieve. Do bite-sized chunks. Every little bit helps. And get into a program, start to read the stuff, start to follow the stuff, and gradually adapt your life to these habits. That's the key. But above all, I go back to attitude. I can live to 100 if I do this stuff. And where do I get the information? And that's the key.
I love that. Just for our audience, the Super Aging Workbook, I'm assuming is available on Amazon.
Yes, it is.
To purchase. Sounds amazing. I'm going to get a copy myself.
Okay,
And then
wonderful.
you also have superagingnews.com.
That's right.
I'll pop all of that into the comments at the bottom as well. It's been fantastic having both of you on.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
So appreciative of your time and your wisdom.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for your thoughts today.